All right, hey everybody, this is Bill Burr. Doing the I've been asked, have the honor to do the intro for unfortunately Bob Saget's last episode of his podcast. Bob Saget is here for you, which I think is a perfectly named podcast for him, where that guy really was there for everybody. Just truly one of the funniest human beings I ever met, and also one of the nicest. He was as funny as he was nice, and he really, he had a lot of pain in life, and he wanted to make sure no one else felt it, and he did the best that he could, and with that, by helping out everybody. And I absolutely love the guy, and I'm in shock that he's no longer with us, but I am just so thankful to have met him, to have known him, and he just was the greatest guy ever. So please enjoy this last episode, and I don't know what else to say other than hopefully we all try to be a little more like that guy. All right, thank you.
Today is somebody that I've known for quite a long time. I would say 25 years, might be 30. It's Dane Cook. And Dane Cook was, after Steve Martin, one of the first people that went on the arena tour. It would be Dice did that, and a few other people. I think Kennison did a few of them. But in America and North America, there weren't a lot of comedians filling 10,000, 20,000 seats. So now you've got about, 10 people out there that are stand-ups, that are en masse, not in masks, en masse entertaining. Nobody says en masse. I don't know what century I'm in. They are entertaining 10 to 20,000 people. It's an event. It's a special night out. And it's a super spreader. But I've been performing in front of people everywhere. And I don't know. I just try to take care of myself and test myself 40, 50 times a day. But Dane Cook started a whole thing and did stand up in a way that I had not seen before when I first saw him on Letterman. And it's a really wonderful thing to have him on here because he's been through a lot and he understands it. And I'm really fascinated with what's next for him. At the end of this month, he's shooting a new special in LA, and then you'll be able to see it and see the next incarnation of all the work he's doing that I know he's incredibly proud of. So I'm incredibly happy to have Dane Cook as a guest on my show right now. And you know what to do: rate, review, subscribe, follow, go to youtube.com/Bob Saget. This is having a little conversation with a person I've been friends with decades. Here's Dane Cook.
Yes.
I love the shit behind you. Holy crap.
I know. Look at it. It looks like I'm sitting in a toy box.
It looks like you run a major, I don't know, Marvel rival company from your basement with incredible game. You're like a gamer. From what are you a gamer?
I am a gamer. Yeah, that's kind of like my thing. That's my golf.
Got it. So when you're golfing, you have a Game Boy in your hand while other people.
No. I do, but I am a gamer. That's probably been my one thing over the years that's been pretty consistent. Ever since I could name every console I've ever had.
Wow. So what was your first?
I think the first was Atari, or no, Pong. Remember Pong?
Yeah, very well. It was sad. It was a very sad thing.
It was very sad. But then what we would do is, to make it more challenging, we'd go to the TV and we'd change the vertical hold, and we would change we'd make the TV look sloppy and weird, so it was harder to play. That was like the way you would.
Yeah, I would. It started off for me. It would almost be like, I think it was. I mean, I was so young. There weren't even ludes invented then, but it was going like this. It was like the Matrix. It
Right.
was the bullets going to Neo's hand.
Yeah.
And then you sped it up, and then you would lose, and then be angry. There was no winning at Pong.
Well, it's where I realized that I did have a real competitive nature about me. And I was like,
really? Oh. I never knew that about you.
And I was like, okay, wait a second. If I could just circumvent that into gaming the way my dad did it with boxing and football. And I hated being around people because I had social anxiety. So I couldn't compete with people because I was crippling.
No, I didn't. Now here's something. I've known you for, Jesus, is it 25 years? Is it more?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't know you had, I got to put up my ring light because you look so good. Now I'll be brighter and look younger and jump higher. So you had social anxiety. So a lot of stand-ups do have that.
Yeah. I was,
and actors.
I was like, mortified most mornings. I'd wake up thinking of having to go to school and being around other kids. And then I would just be creating scenarios of, what if I get embarrassed? What if they pick on me? What if they want me to play and I'm bad on the team? I just was beating up on myself pretty constantly. So yeah, no, not enjoying the school stuff, but I would disappear into the gaming and that kind of competitive isolation.
But Dane, like in junior high, if you had like a really good set, like at lunch, I mean, I would assume you were outgoing and funny, or were you totally withdrawn?
The opposite, not only withdrawn, but I had, of course, it's junior high. I got the worst acne. I got like the worst level, like cystic. I look like The Mask. It was pretty brutal. So no,
How do you get that? Is that from having like balls rubbed on your face?
Balls, yes, your own. Actually, I'm very limber.
So and I believe you could do that. You've always been. That's one of the first things I noticed about you. Besides, you're pretty limber, damn it.
It's pretty close. I almost wanted to remove a rib just to get all the way the fuck down there one time.
See, I wouldn't do it. If I could, I wouldn't. Even in experimental times when I was unsure of what the hell I was going to do with my penis, right. I didn't want to do that. But I'm not, and this is not a judgment. A lot of people would enjoy at least a couple times a day doing it.
I feel like I'm one of those people that if I finally accomplished it and I got even a little bit of my own penis in my mouth, I bet it would just be like the ultimate letdown. I think you'd come away from that going, I was really hoping that there would be something. I think it's like tickling yourself. There's just no movement on the needle.
Well, I'm not ticklish if I tickle myself. If I tickle my penis, that's the soundbite. That's what we're going to use for the promo.
Please use all this.
Oh yeah, every part. This is like a cattle drive. Every part gets used. I'm really happy to see you.
You too, man.
I mean, we've drifted in and out of each other's lives over the years. We've had a couple poignant moments together.
Yeah. I feel like for me, when I first met you, I remember that first conversation, and I probably, rambled on a little because I do remember in that first time meeting you and talking about being at Nick's in Boston and just being really proud of what you'd accomplished in your career. And I, in one way or another, told you that because you'd had these two hugely successful shows. And of course, I grew up watching the Young Comedian specials. And to me, I just felt like in that period of my life, you were like that beacon of like, wow, you can really kind of have it all. You can be on network television. You can be comic. You can be edgy. You can be fucking, you could be, family. And you were hitting all of those. And then I didn't see you for a number of years. And when you reached out again, I was really honored because you asked me to be a part of your charity events. And that meant so much to me. Yeah, man. So
thanks for doing that, by the way.
Oh man, you know it always.
We're getting closer to helping people. To curing it is what we're looking for.
Well, good.
Yeah, well, with you, it's for comedians always do this when they get on a podcast because I know that you actually just recently spoke to an old friend of mine, Dennis Miller. How did that go? What was that fun?
It's good. It's always great to talk to a comic that tapped out and no longer considers themselves part of the organization.
Right.
but it's still like, but no, you're still that, doesn't matter how far you get on that cruise ship in bail. It's like, no, you've had the mic in your hand. You'll always be that creature in some regard.
And I don't see Dennis Miller ever doing cruise ships either.
No, just escaping them.
He would be the guy. He wouldn't grab the kid in Titanic and go down on the boat, the little dinghy. But he would definitely get the fuck off of there. I mean,
there's two people in my life that I've met that you could really tell have no interest in going back towards stand-up. And I got that from Dennis and Steve Martin. Steve Martin was somebody who, once I met him, he was like, there was no, and I said, come on, don't you think you'd, and he was like, no.
Yeah, and that was a public choice he made, and he wrote that in his book, Born Standing Up, that it's the second show Fridays. And there is such a thing in this world, whether you're doing clubs, theaters, not arenas. If somebody is at which you were. Steve was I think, one of the first arena comedians on earth, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he was really the first one to make comedy an event, right? Where it was something bigger than just the laughs.
And there must have been someone in Edinburgh or someone in London that did it, that could fill 10,000, 20,000 seats. There had to have been.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I was introduced to those massive venues through my sister Kelly. Came back and saw Steve Martin play Boston Garden, and she just couldn't, I remember the look on her face as she was explaining all those people laughing and what he was doing up there. And it really hit me early on. I was like, oh, wow, I wonder if you can take comedy to that level of, like athleticism. I wonder if it can work in that realm. It was working for him. I saw as I got older, it was working for Dice. But I also was like, but wait, can it be about the material, or does it have to only be about the shimmery fucking jacket or the arrow and the dancing? I really was like, I wonder if there's a way where you could hybrid and still be a showman, but have some great material that connects. That was my goal.
Well, you accomplished it. And we're going to talk about that because I want to talk about it. And he did something which was amazing, which was he took an entire lifetime of career, Steve Martin, who all of us revere, anyone with a brain, and anyone that loves comedy loves Steve Martin, because he's, if there's a Mount Rushmore, he's up there with however it revolves. Oh, these are the 5. Oh no, those aren't popular right now. Those 2. There's a separate Mount Rushmore right now.
Somebody gets canceled, they just have to put a big tarp over one of the faces that's chiseled into the.
They should just CGI them at this point.
That's true.
You could just redo it. Yeah. But he went and took this amazing act that he honed in Disneyland, doing balloons. He was even in I'm a Disney phobe. Are you a Disneyland person?
Yeah, not really.
There was Horseshoe, the Horseshoe, what was it called? Cabaret, the Horseshoe, Golden Horseshoe, whatever it was. It was an old vaudeville show based on an old Western town.
Right.
And it had can-can dancers, which got me in there at 13. And there was a funny guy that would get hit in the mouth and spit all his teeth out and play the banjo. And they copied Steve. Steve was he was following a script, I'm sure, or the laws of Disneyland.
Right.
But all of that, not unlike any of the greats. I mean, Richard Pryor's first movie was 10 years of material getting there. And that's that first special. And Steve just changed everything because he did it with dignity. And his stuff was never easy to go to arena because he could explode what he was doing. It was live performing, making fun of showbiz, and yet being accomplished at it. And everything he was making fun of. So you looked at all that. I watched you the first time I saw you. I didn't know you on Letterman. I've told you this many times. I watched the way you moved. I've seen people move like that, but it wasn't organic. I saw people move around. They would talk while they would explain things, and it was kind of like, just following a script of, oh, I learned how to walk the stage. I learned how to claim my space.
Right.
Where did this style, how did you, and it may not even be conscious, it's probably, so a quiet guy in school, all of a sudden, what age are you when you start doing this? And how do you get this into your body the way you did?
Yeah, so I was 19 when I went to Catch a Rising Star in Cambridge, Massachusetts. That's where I did my first by mistake open mic. I'll tell you that in a second. It's kind of funny, but and I think that if you look back at what was, if we talk to every comic that we love and respect, and you go, what's the first thing you got right? What's besides taking the mic out without making the fucking cord and drop it? What's the first thing that you did? Was it something on the pay? Like, was it physical? Was it? And for me, it was like immediately I had a sense of calm and being present on stage that I didn't have when I was corresponding with people off stage. I think when I look back and with some great therapy over the years, I think it was because I felt like I was in control, when in life and with other people, I always felt like either I was kind of being controlled or out of control. And so there was something very, the discipline of what you needed to do when you hit that stage in that first year, right away, I could move around, and it was like telling a story on the porch during the summer. You know, there's always that one person who just gets up, and it's kind of easy for them to goof on the neighborhood and tell that came easy first. So right out of the gate was like, oh, okay, I have a comfortability. Now I just got to figure out how to, write around that, or, write to that.
But how come you didn't have it in school? I mean, it would have saved your life to be in the cafeteria and be able to walk over to people, slither up to somebody, start talking to them. You could have held stage and done that fake popularity thing that works.
Right. I don't know, man. I was a real self-loathing kid. I did not like myself very much. I was real hard on myself. Probably a mixture of the acne, which made me feel like, I just didn't want to look at myself. I didn't think anybody else. And I knew kids were making fun of me. So there was I was withdrawn, but I appreciate that, man. But I was withdrawn, but then I'd get home and I felt so calm at home that I would make my family laugh, and I was writing skits, and I was watching stand-up, Johnny Carson every night, HBO. Right. I escaped through comedians. I loved that idea of being a person who could, get through pain with laughs.
That's what we do. Even the comics that don't want to be part of the club, that are the skillful ones, the ones that we look at, the ones that are in the Mount Rushmore, a couple of them that we know, and they're very confident. They don't say fuck ever. And a couple of them, just only a handful of those guys, and a couple ladies, but mostly guys that follow the old school way of doing stand-up, and it's very smart, it's very clever, but they don't all believe that comedy comes through pain. And I think that amazing facade that they've created that makes them so calm, they're lucky, first of all. The few people I'm talking about, we all know who I'm talking about, but I'm not gonna. Why put it out there? But I do think it comes from pain. It comes from pain because you needed to do this in the first place, and it wasn't because, man, I love the art of stand-up, and wow, George Carlin, because the people I'm talking about wouldn't approach George Carlin type material,
right?
So I just find it interesting. I do think that we all think that comedy and pain are very closely related, I think.
Yeah, and I also feel like there's something always cathartic about getting up on stage and sharing like some real hardcore truths about yourself, or even like mirroring something that everybody knows, elephant in the room kind of atmosphere. When you can do that, I think that there's a sense of, as comics, always kind of taking away from ourselves. When you go up and you knock one out of the park, and you're reflecting something real, or you're nailing something everyone's feeling, it's like a feeling of being a little heroic. Like, there's one thing I can do for myself or for this audience, which is call it out and fucking kick the can around. And even if it's not the funniest thing in the world, there's something that I've always respected about seeing a person go up there and just call themselves out, right? Be self-deprecating, but in a fucking hilarious way.
Yeah.
That's brave to me.
Those are the people that we look up to. I mean, there's a lot of Rodney Dangerfield right now in the zeitgeist. There's a bunch. And he is a guy, I mean, it's right there. he always would say, you make fun of yourself first, man. And then,
Right.
he wouldn't even say make fun of other people. He would do it once in a while. He would be shocked when someone heckled him. I mean, you have been were you a big sports, Boston, crazy sports guy? I know you're a gamer, but you are competitive. You started competitive in the way you are against yourself and others.
Yeah, my dad was like one of those people that everything became a competition, right? Tiddlywinks, shooting, playing, horse outside on the regulation size basketball net that he installed. I mean, everything was competitive. And so my dad, one time when I used to always talk about what I was going to do. I was one of those kids. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then one day I said to my dad, I'm going to build a lemonade stand, and it's going to be L-shaped so that people coming down Hurd Road and Wright Street. I had this whole big idea. And in the middle of telling my dad, he walked over to the front door and he opened it and he just stared out and he just turned back to me. I go, "You're listening?" And he goes, "Yeah, no, I'm listening, but I don't see it. I don't see it." And I just it gutted me. I just remember that moment to this day of feeling like nothing that I'm talking about is ever gonna make any kind of ripple unless I manufacture it and create it somehow. And that was the beginning of me going, I'm going to start writing stand-up and trying to figure out how to make that come to fruition.
Now, I know a bunch of personal stuff. You end up talking about it on everything you do. You've come out and talked about all the stuff that's painful, which everybody has. I lost people. People died instead of screwing me over. That's what they did. So I got screwed over by their deaths because they didn't do anything weird. But my parents were a bit abusive just by being parents. Did you get along with them? It sounds like your dad, you had a competitive thing going, but all of this created who you are, obviously.
Right. Yeah, they were both funny. That's the good news. My mom had a lot of energy. She could find a way to kind of bring any moment up. But my dad was like a bit of if you met my dad, you wouldn't really know that he was funny because everything was real dry and real monochromatic, and then he'd finally look at you and go, "Bob, I'm kidding." And he'd go, "Oh, okay, George, thanks." And then a little bit later, he'd be like, "Remember that thing I said earlier? I'm going to do that. Ready?" So you knew he had that shtick. He had that ability. He was a bit of a ham, but he had a swagger and he was a scary dude. Not just because he drank, but my dad had just an intimidation factor. And I would watch him when he would compete, the way he could kind of he'd get into your head. So it wasn't even just about him beating you physically on the court. It was the mind games and the mental things that he knew how to do to be able to level up. And he was a fascinating individual versus my mom, who's just all compassion and just wanted to make you feel good in any situation. So when I started doing stand-up comedy, it was kind of like a blend of their acts. There was the movement.
Right.
That was me. But then there was also that Boston thing that, guys like Burr, myself, or Patrice, or it's
don't make me cry.
We can, there's that Cobra Strike. And so being able to
I have it too. I look like an accountant, but for fuck's sake, if somebody fucks, I have this thing where,
oh yeah,
you throw one rock at me and I'll collect 1,000. I'll get a catapult. I don't give a shit. We are sensitive motherfuckers.
Right, exactly. And you almost want to see that side of people. You know what I mean? It's because that's alluring too, man. The truth, even if it's angry truth or irreverent truth, it's more than anything. And from Patrice, one thing I learned really early on, because he was ahead of the game in terms of he brought his real emotion up to the stage. Whatever he was feeling, if he didn't want to be formulaic and contrived and he wasn't feeling the act that he knew he could kill on the third spot on a Friday, he'd just go up there with what he was feeling in that moment. You might say, "Oh man, is he having a bad set?" It's no, he's living in a real moment. To me, that was something that we all were trying to emulate.
Yeah. And I wasn't extremely close with him, but when I spent time with him, it counted. And I know he felt that way about me because I'm saying that. So I'm going by that. I'm sticking with it. But what I loved about him was exactly what you're saying, in the moment, right to the gut. But what upset me was he often would say, this is why I'm not a big star. This is why I'm never going to be a big star. This is why I'm not going to get that TV money. And even when I was on that show that, the Green Room that Paul Provenza made on Showtime.
Great episode.
Patrice said it on that, and they cut stuff out because I was going, no, you're wrong. And he got mad at me, but he also laughed a couple times because we had a nice relationship, but he was wrong. And that's what's so sad. You can't correct somebody if they don't know in their heart. You look at Kevin Hart, that's the lesson that I wish he could have mentored Patrice,
Right.
Comedic rock star shit, hashtag, my problem is I put the hashtag at the end. That's been such a mistake for my career. But Patrice was so great and had so much love in him. It's just a shame that we don't get to have that and watch him and maybe help him a little just in terms of talking to him.
Right.
But it's a bottomless pit with some of us. There's, because we go through a lot. Now, you've been through a lot. So your parents are not with us anymore?
No, they both passed away in the same year. They both got cancer. They both succumbed to cancer within the same 9 months. I lost them both.
Jesus, sorry.
But can I say one more thing about Patrice?
Please talk forever.
The thing that I when I think about him often. His leather hat's right here. His black leather Boston hat. His mom Georgia gave to me, and he was always in search of a point counterpoint conversation. And I think there wasn't enough people like yourself, what you're talking about, and why I love that Green Room episode, the segments, excerpts that were there. I think he longed for people to challenge his ideas because the conversations I had, he knew he was wrong about stuff, but he still wanted to blurt and investigate. And he was curious about sometimes his own misgivings and curious about who's going to step up and call something out when it's turbulent. And I think that he was looking for that in the industry. And the industry's, obviously nobody wants an assertive person in this industry. You step up and you say, stop, I don't like that. And then you get like, you're an asshole and, whatever. Everybody kind of has to, travel together. And he was really looking for people. And that's why I think what he was great at away from stand-up was conversation, podcast, radio. And I would like to think if he'd made it to this point, things like this are where he would shine, because I do think he could bring guests in. He would have had people in that were very different from him that could go up against him. He thrived in that area. He loved it.
Yeah. I also think to that point that this would be his time. This would be his time. He'd be out there calling people on their shit in a way that nobody else is, because everybody is. There is no late night host that does not do it. There aren't comedians that get up and don't go there. He really would. I wish he was alive. I'd love to hear how he would attack what we're living through right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure with fervor, man. I think that he was one of the few in that Chappelle-esque, like a transmitter, something different. So I learned, listen, man, I wouldn't be where I am today with a select few individuals that really cared about me through thick and thin. And Patrice and Georgia, his mom, were always really loving and supportive in those formative years. So it's nice to be able to chat a little bit about him today.
Now, bringing up Dave Chappelle, there was a moment, I only know that I would sometimes come by the Laugh Factory. We developed a friendship through that. It would be like, I'll go on after you, or you go, you go on before me, or you're going to go on before me, which made me feel good. That made me feel like, wow, I'm going to do well, maybe. And then, but you and Dave had this Guinness Book of World Records thing. What happened there? Was that true? No. I heard there was like a 5-6 hour who could do the longest stand-up thing. And what the hell was that?
It was first of all, far from a record. It was a Laugh Factory record of, the world record was like a dude in London who stood on stage for like 36 straight hours and like peed in a cup. what
That's
the
what
laugh
that's what they're going to change in Congress. You're going to be able to do that longer.
Yeah, I mean, the laugh factory thing was like Pryor did 5 hours one night, and then I came in. I didn't even know about that. I just ended up on stage at the end of a long night, for a very long night, for like 6 hours. And then I guess Dave came in like a month later and told Jamie, I'm going to break Dane's thing and so I thought it was funny. So then I went up like a year later and I did 7 hours. But it was it was a local Laugh Factory record, and it was not in any way a competition, because it wasn't like we were calling each other saying, are you going to try to break it or am I? It was just something that kind of unfolded.
So Jamie Masada is the one that made it a world event.
Yes. Yes.
So now, what the hell? When I started, I would go on the road. When I'm 22. I had a lot of guitar stuff, a lot, and then I would come up with things. I would do everything. I played the dating game with the audience. I don't know what the hell I did. But I would do 3 to 4 hours would be. And Rich Scheidner, I don't know if you know Richie. We used to compete. A couple of us out there.
Yeah,
I did 3.5. Did you? What the hell do you do for 5 to 7 hours? By the way, that gal's very pretty.
Yeah. She's 1 year old. What did I do? I did, there was 49 people in the crowd total. I think by the time 6 a.m. rolled around, there was 44. So a few people, bolted. I knew everybody. I did crowd work galore. I did every piece of material that I thought was any good. And then the rest of it was, okay, now who's the next okay, what's your name? And I would do like 20 minutes on their life. I just try to mine as much comedy out of it. So, not everything was, big laughs. Some things were no laughs.
Right.
Some things were this. Okay. But it was still just, I felt this need to just stay up there. I don't know. I was also in a bit of a rut in my life at that point. I felt like being on stage just felt amazing, man. And so that's how it happened.
How long ago is this? Because this coincides with some of your difficult times.
That might have been like right around 2009 or something like that. It was a while ago. It was like around 8, 9, or 10, right around there.
It's really interesting. Everybody knows that, when someone says your name, many people speak of, yeah, man, he was the first person that did what a bunch of people are doing now, because comedy is kind of back in that 1978, 1980 realm where arenas became a thing, and now it's an arena competition out there. Right. And you're a competitive guy, and I know you, and you're a sensitive guy, and you're also trying to process everything, which I admire, and that's really cool and good for you. Where does that make you want to get a taste of that again? What is it? Is it something that, because I don't strive for arenas. I strive to do whatever I need to do at the time to get a special made, then to go on the road and get as many people that I warrant that will come in. But where are you at? Because you look at it, I mean, you're competitive people are competitive people.
Yeah.
Is it a tiger you're wrestling with or something?
So, I had like a good 8-year run from, being underground and then being like the belle of the ball. And then, of course, taking it to that pipe dream, Madison Square Garden, Boston Garden, any garden, the garden, like you name it. I did it. I think I did every arena, every A and B arena in the US and Canada. I rolled through. And I got to tell you, Bob, first of all, the shows were always fun. And even though some of them were unhinged in the best possible way, like a big, what is that thing that Richard Lewis once said? It's like performing in a pirate's den. Some of those early comedy. Sometimes it was like a big arena pirate's den. But it always felt like an event, and you always knew it was a special night out for people, and you wanted to be able to deliver on that. But when that era for me finally was like, okay, the last arena tour, and then I sat out for about a year, I was like, I never want to do that again. I would never try to, if anything, what I wanted to do is I turned that focus and I said, I have all this love for comedy and I have all this passion for creativity. What if I took all the energy doing that and don't even try to do that again, but put that same intensity and energy into something else that I love to do. And there were things in my evolution that I knew I wanted to do besides stand-up comedy. There were other things that I wasn't as focused in on, and maybe like learning, it's still an apprentice in some other areas of my career, dramatic work, things behind the camera, my writing, starting a shingle company that wasn't comedy related, but like, telling stories on behalf of other people, diverse cultures. Those were all things that I wanted to see if I could put that same love of the game.
Right.
So would I do an arena show? If Chappelle hit me up tomorrow, I just saw David as a documentary the other night. It was awesome. I mean, he's awesome. And we had this beautiful, beautiful chat. And if Dave called me and said, you want to do an arena show? I'd be like, hell yeah, my show kills in arenas. If you said to me, do you want to do an arena tour? I'd say, no. I'm satisfied with that era of my career. I did it to the hilt, and I don't like being derivative, and I don't like going backwards. So for me, it's now the next special that I film at the end of January. And then what I'm hoping is I'm going to do some things that are going to change the game again in terms of the way people approach stand-up and the way people are going to want it to be, interacted with and shared. I want to move the needle in another way that hopefully people will look at me and go, oh, that's where we should be going now.
So do you find the stand-up you're doing now, I know I do, completely different than, like, it's a just different evolution in what you did in the past?
I think it's the best of what I did in my early career, which was just like, I had just an unlimited amount of enthusiasm, because the first part of my career was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm not scared anymore the way when I was a kid. I have something I love and people love me doing it. So I felt like I'd already won. And then coming through a bunch of fucked up hardship and coming out of that and being able to be introspective the way, like Gary Shandling, watching that documentary and how much I adored him from afar. I did not know him, but I felt like I did. And I really wanted to be able to interpret my own feelings and take introspection and still that love of the game energy. And so the new special is like, I feel like the best blend of what people know from what I've done before and who I am today. So I'm really proud of where I'm at, and I can't wait to film it and then take it out and, let people enjoy it.
This is where I'm at. And I have not since 1995, I went on a Banshee tour. People were always like, well, did Bob, when he did family television, because we all know people that are getting the kibosh for things and cancellation in family television, because then they hear them on stage and they go, oh my God, they're a horrible person. But I never stopped doing what I did when I did Full House. It did cause some, when I play casino, here's Danny from Full House and the video guy, and I'd come out and I was an R-rated comedian because that's what I found funny, but I was cognizant of it. I was apologetic. Only one lady walked out in Vancouver, and I think it's because she was losing at the tables. That's what I think. But I mean, I got my bad boy stuff done on stage, not in life, is how I like to frame it. But with you, you've been through, I have to say, the first thing I saw of you gets back to your roots. You made a 35 millimeter movie with your own money, and I guess it was a 40-minute short?
It was like 15 or 16 minutes.
But then I apologize for making it seem that long.
It might have felt that long to some people watching it.
No, but you were a dark character. You were going through mental issues. You directed it. You wrote it. You starred in it. You invited me to the screening room. You were trying to forward your acting career to play a dark character, and you ended up doing it with Kevin Costner, with a lot of different films. That was directly related to what I saw in that room before anybody knew you from anything except a couple of television appearances and maybe a special. I think you'd had one special then.
Right.
But that's your roots of the other side of you, because there's a few sides to everybody.
I grew up loving comics that could turn that corner and show you that darkness in us. I mean, Jerry Lewis, King of Comedy. That was really it for me. As I was putting the pieces together of like, okay, I love comedy and I want to be a showman up there. But I also knew, like, I grew up in a really chaotic household. We joked about a lot of really dark things to get through it. And I knew, and I had a love of performance. And I was like, I want to be able to have that career. If I have a career, if I'm going to make it halfway or all the way, I want to have a career that I don't get pigeonholed. And I'd like to be able to play a lot of different kinds of roles. I'm a storyteller anyway. I want to tell different stories like the people that I loved growing up and wanted to emulate. So when I took my foot off the pedal and doing comedies, because I kept getting offered more comedies, even after I did My Best Friend's Girl. And I was also in such kind of an upside down moment of my life personally, and maybe not the happiest, that I said no to a lot of things. Because I was like, if I keep doing these comedies, I'm only ever going to get that kind of role. I'd rather just do stand-up, whether I'm in vogue or out of vogue. I'll always have it. And people will know, the right people will know, great producers, great directors, smart industry people will know. We need somebody who's dark but funny. And when that moment comes along, I might actually have access and can maybe win that role. But I'm never going to get there if I keep doing like the same kind of shtick over and over. So I definitely made it a focus in the last 10 years to move towards more creative and cultivating my own stories and ideas away from stand-up.
Yeah. And the best people, I mean, Richard, who, I mean, you got to know him. I mean, you got to be around Richard. I mean, that's when you come up. I mean, to know that one of the greatest that will ever live, he was in Lady Sings the Blues. And when I saw that, I was a teenager and I freaked out. And I knew he was going to be great. When it said, and Richard Pryor, I mean, I was in the theater for Car Wash. You know, I saw him, and it was after the film that my friend David Permit produced, where he did it in Long Beach, the very first one. And that stand-up, he had acting in all of his stand-up, where he was a junkie, where he was, you know, a dark life that could be. And he played it. He played the heroin addict. Showbiz person in with Diana Ross, and it was insane.
You could watch his performance, and what I think the best comics can do, in their eyes you can see joy and you can see deep pain, and he could do that. You could look at him and there was just something in what he was reflecting in that role where you could see his love of life, and then you could see when he felt through that performance hurt by life. And those are my favorite kinds of performers. You know, I love seeing somebody who can, you know, share a story even on stage and stand up that doesn't always have to get to the laugh. It's great when it finally does, but when somebody takes you on that journey and can let you in to where you almost can't breathe because you're like, is this real? What they're telling us? It's great stuff.
You know, you've also, and this is important for people to hear. I know you go over it a lot. Let me know if you don't want to discuss it. It's. I don't want to dwell on it. But a lot of people, especially now during COVID, I have a cousin, and he's a twin, and his brother died from Agent Orange, from get sprayed with it in Vietnam.
Right.
And I watched him die. I would go and perform at the Borgata in Atlantic City. I'd get to see him. He'd always be there, and I'd watch him every year decay. And I'm sure you have that too. You go see people with special needs or relatives that are dying of cancer, and you see that. That's one thing we get as performers if we want to see people that we know and good people do.
Right.
And the brothers broke up, and they were twins, and that's a sin when that happens. And you've had to deal with so much, and now I really do feel like it's a deep breath into this new year. Happy New Year, by the way.
Thank you, man. You too.
But you were betrayed by, I mean, I'm confused by that drama. I guess sister-in-law and brother is kind of how it went.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that kind? It was a financial betrayal, but it's not. It's not that. It's a betrayal. It's how can you tell I know you talked ad nauseum. What can you do for people? And during COVID, a lot of desperate things have happened. You know, people have passed and people are fighting over the will, and that never stops. But I don't know, what large theme can you put on it?
I'll tell you what I do take away from it. And one of the most important things is the longer you ignore pain, the more the pain's going to linger. And I knew that even though I didn't know what my brother had done to me for years and years, which is he was handling my money. He was basically helping me to run my business. This is the brother I grew up with. Same mom, two different dads. And when I found out what he was doing, now I'm talking in hindsight. In the moment, I was upside down. It was the worst. You know, it was betrayal with love. I mean, talk about the hardest pain. Betrayal hard enough. Losing love hard together. It was like a ball peen hammer coming down on me. But in hindsight, it was the moment where finally I was not being nurtured by somebody bad. Okay. He was guiding me always in a way because I loved him. But think about that. I was being guided by somebody who was just permeating negativity 24 hours a day for years. And when he finally was out of my life and I stopped spinning and I landed on my feet, now looking back now 10 plus years ago, it was like taking a breath and being in fresh air. It was the beginning of a happy, incredible moment in my life because I no longer was like distracted or confused or encumbered by a con artist. Putting him in prison, every once in a while people will ask me if they dare to. And the truth is, you don't have to dare. I don't mind talking about it because I have so much, I'm okay. You know, I'm literally like, there's no part of that makes my life today impacted. So people say, how was it to put him in prison? And I say, it was great. It was like, yeah, it was the perfect punishment for what he did. And to go into a courtroom and see him and read an impact letter and say to a judge, you should punish him to the full extent of the law. It was like, yeah, that's the right thing to do. And I could do it in front of a group of people, remembering that he grew up with me as the kid who didn't have a voice unless I was performing. And now suddenly I was standing up for myself and I was starting a new chapter of my life. So Bob, I will tell you, like, what I would say to people going into 2022, what I try to like convey through comedy, whether it's through laughs or just straight up telling it like it is here, is like, if people are surrounding you and bringing negative into your life, you gotta get them out. You have to exorcise negativity from your life, and you have to have a fresh start. 2022, a new year, a new start. But you have to look in the mirror and you have to admit there are people or things in my life that are causing me more pain, and they're going to just continue until I go through the pain of removing them, and then you can reset.
I learned that the hard way, and it's a breath of fresh air, even in the moment when someone calls you with that con and goes, hey, I need money, I want to do this, or I need you to do this, or here's a script, or I've been conned with people telling me they got somebody sick in their family and they don't. And it's just, and I've had relatives I've had to say no to. Right. And some I haven't, but you got to cut the cancer from your life. It's what it is. It'll eat you alive. And a lot of people right now, we're in a very negative culture. It's like you have gotten through, you crossed the desert on this, that exercise, that courtroom, that brother. I mean, what else is it? It's Cain and Abel. I mean, it's so fucked up. And yet, I have never known you to be, well, when I met you and you were fresh and new to LA, that's the dream. That's what we all wish we could get, that energy. But this brings that energy back, because all the shit that deforms us through all of these things, and also rising to the level, that causes people to hang on you like barnacles. It's just really fucked up when they're your brother and your best friend. Did you find yourself through this quarantine, COVID, new quarantine, new COVID, then another quarantine, then a new COVID? Did you find yourself regrouping again, like a lot of us did, and going, yeah, I'm going to answer that email, or I'm going to reach out, or was it mostly positive, or did you do what some of us do, which is drift down the Twitter hole and go, how could you say something like that?
No, I saw it happening. I started getting into a little rut, and I was ruminating, and I know myself well enough to go, okay, like I know those are the signals that I need to do for others. I want to entertain in some way. So I'll try to figure out how to do that from home. But I'll tell you, a night that I don't even think she realizes how much this meant to me. I was on Clubhouse, the Clubhouse chat.
Yeah.
And one night I had a couple of thousand people just talking, people from around the world. Hey, where are you from? New Zealand's in the house, in South Africa. It was kind of like this global stage. It was impromptu. And all of a sudden I looked up and Tiffany Haddish was right next to me in the room. And I brought her on the stage, and it's her and I. And we just started talking about love. And we started talking about a little bit about the industry. Like I knew her since she was a kid. And I brought a picture of her on The View when she was like, I don't know, 17. And I said, you're going to know this girl someday. This is Tiffany Haddish.
Did?
Yes. I said, Whoopi, you're going to love her. You're going to, not knowing years later, Whoopi would literally be her like mentor and family. But so Tiffany jumps in, and she didn't even realize that like the conversation we were having and just shooting the shit and being funny, boasting about, Tiffany can boast sometimes in that funny way that's still endearing because you know what she's had to overcome. And we were laughing.
And she is a love. And when I see her, I see that 16, 17-year-old girl.
Yes. And I was wiping tears away because it was one of those, I don't know, beacon moments where I was like, I know I feel shitty, and we all do, especially as performers, let alone the rest of the world, because we don't know we're scared, and we don't know what's going to happen in this era and how we're going to come out of it. Are we going to come out of it? But it was this moment with Tiffany that like brought me right back into what can I do right now with the people I love to just feel engaged and create something. And I called, I think, Sean Penn like the next day, and I put together that read of Fast Times.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. That was hilarious. It looked like everybody had the best time, but it did look like you had the most fun. And so you put that together. You produced that.
That's right. Yeah. I'd been working with Sean Penn for a little bit. For about a year prior, we were working on a project together. And then when everything paused and he got, going with CORE, which is his organization that was, boots on the ground in Haiti after the earthquake, then they wanted
I thought it was about the abs.
About the abs?
Yeah, you work on your abs. I thought that's what CORE was. That's why I didn't give him money. If I'd known it was for Haiti, I would have given money.
We were in there doing 1,000 crunches for Haiti. And it was like, okay, so I hit him up and I pitched him this idea of, why don't we do a reading of Fast Times? And he's like, okay, I want Shia LaBeouf to play Spicoli. And then it's like, okay, I'll reach out to Aniston and can we get, and all of a sudden, here I was in this pandemic kind of rut, sitting in my sweatpants, like, what can I do? When am I going to perform again?
Right.
And during that reading at one point, because, we had Shia and McConaughey and Brad Pitt and everybody, and Aniston and I were like live texting. It looked like we were holding our scripts, but we were actually looking at our phones and we were texting each other. And the funniest thing she said, and I just wrote her this the other day because I do my year-end texts to people and gratitude texts and appreciation. And I said, I just want to say to you, I appreciate you said one of the funniest things of 2020 that still made me laugh during 2021. She said, what's that? And I go, you texted me, is it possible that Shia is out McConaughey? It brought me so much joy, and I know it brought a lot of people some happiness, of course, at a time when we're all looking, Bob, as you know, like for ways to entertain ourselves and each other.
Well, Shia did something which I think, if there's not an award for best Zoom performance, but that would be the commitment.
Right.
It was another level.
It was another level.
Everybody was staring, and that's what made it so much fun to come to the game. Besides the cast you put together. Yeah,
it was wild. But Bob, it's that thing too. It's like, and you know this. If you hit me up out of the blue and said, "Man, I want to do a play. I have an idea," and it's like when someone hits you up that has such a passion for something, and even if it's not worked out completely, but you hear somebody that you know and acknowledge is creative, you go, "I just want to help you. I want to be on board." And I think that's one thing that I'm sure, you and I could, give thanks to so many people that even when you're having hard years or years where it's like you're getting kicked in the teeth, or maybe not even the intention of getting kicked in the teeth, there's those people that, hit you up and go, "Hey, you want to come play? We got a sandbox over here." And that's really the thing that you want to be able to help. And that's what Tiffany and I did on that clubhouse, which is how can we try to create an environment where if somebody feels like they need that little bit of extra oomph, we can provide that. So that's what we did then. And hopefully we continue to do into comedy next year.
Well, you definitely will. And I definitely will, because that's how we're made. I mean, and it can be any size audience. It could be the clubhouse size audience. It could be, thousands. It could be hundreds. It could be millions. It can simply be something that you do that's an act of passion. So it'd been a rough time, and I don't know where things are in relationships, nor do I care. I mean, I care if you care, but at the time of Robin Williams passing, it was a shock for everyone. And we were scheduled to go to dinner that night, you and myself and Jamie Masada. And what was the pretext for that dinner beside the fact that we never do this? Let's do this. Do you remember?
I don't, but I remember there was a good period of time where you and I would see each other. I'd say, "We got to get together. I'd love to grab dinner or lunch or a vending machine." And I do know that we were trying to hang for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I had a huge amount of empathy because of what you'd gone through. And it's not something that you can say in passing before someone goes up on stage. Hey, really sorry about,
everyone dying.
Hey, that criminal act must have pissed you off. Break a leg. So we had dinner scheduled. We all get the news, which is losing one of the most talented people ever. And so then dinner's scheduled. And then we have a 3-way call with Jamie Masada, who's crying. I think it's one of the times he did display a lot of compassion a lot of different times. He's a complex carbohydrate. And so we decided, do we go to dinner? And you guys were kind enough to come to my side of town.
Right.
And that restaurant closed, by the way. It went.
Oh, no.
A lot of them did. But we went there, and it was. Yeah. What were you thinking? Because we needed each other.
Yeah, it was cathartic. I obviously didn't have the intimate relationship that you had. I'd only shared stages with him, and of course grew up loving him, and wanting to know him. And when I did share a little bit of space with him, standing next to him at the Laugh Factory before he'd go up, and I got to chat with him really briefly, it was like, I don't know. I just felt like that kinship, and obviously he's a guy that I grew up loving and wanting to emulate in so many ways. So to be able to sit there and hear stories and share a couple of my own personal experiences, it felt good to be around you guys in that moment.
That was a few hours. We sat there literally. I mean, it was like a 3-hour meal, I think, or 4 or something. And it was a lot. I was crying a lot. It was like I was in a coma, and you guys were so kind. There was like, it just showed me your character. It showed me, and Jamie's too. It was the highest of Jamie's character, because Jamie's a complex person. But
what was your do you remember the first time that you guys had shared a stage together? That's something I think I always wanted to know. Do you know the first time that you guys had performed together?
I met Robin when I was 21 or 22, and I was on a lineup. Letterman was the MC. Mitzi gave me some good spots because I was the new young kid in town. I quit grad school because she told me to work at the Comedy Store for free and that I would learn a lot. She wasn't wrong. As crazy as that sounds. And the strike was founded, and all the money they fought for, they're getting less now for spots, which is weird. It's a bad time for a strike, though, I think, for comedians. Yeah. But it was Michael Keaton was on, Jeff Altman, Argus Hamilton, Jimmy Walker, Billy Crystal. This is one night. So I get off stage, and Robin had just seen my act. And as you know, Robin was a sponge for comedy. He could hear everything you did, and he could recite it back, and hopefully he wouldn't. And by sheer accelerated memory and just photographic talent, and also knowing what great is. But more than anything, he, with me, was loving and a mentor, and I was astonished. If you're in his presence on stage, God help you, because he moves upstage or downstage, wherever you are. He finds a light that there wasn't even in the grid above.
Right.
But off stage, he came up to me, and I had a really weird act. It was so weird. And he comes up to me, he goes, "So your mother is Gumby and your father is Pokey and you're Mr. Potato Head?" And I went, "Yep." And he goes, "Okay." And then we talked for a while. And he actually asked me about Dave Coulier, who had just started working there. And he was like 19. And he said, "Oh, the young wing one, the beautiful Sting-like blonde." Dave had a Sting haircut at the time. But I was only on stage with him to introduce him. But when I would, it would be an exercise because Robin made everything a formal exercise. And the only way to get him not to, do something, I don't know why, but I would dry hump him. It was kind of my instinct. And he was, whoa, but it became a thing. The benefit you did for me for scleroderma, he did it like 7 times over 30 years. And he expected it. And then he started to make jokes about it because he said he was so hairy that I would get caught in him like a starfish. So brilliant.
So brilliant.
I have a story I could share that I never shared with anybody, and it's one of the more special things that ever happened to me with Robin, which was I was still filming Full House, and he was shooting Hook at the stage next door on the Sony lot, which wasn't the Sony lot. It was Columbia then. And he said, "Bob, nobody's here. Let me show you the set." And so he brings just Robin and myself. He has the guy turn the lights on. It's the ship in Hook. The ship where he's going to swing across the rope.
Yeah.
Where it's the mast of the ship. I mean, it's the movie, and it's Peter Pan. And he says, "Watch this." And then we walk up this stairway to the top of the mast where they hook me up, and I grab this, and they take me over, and I swing all the way across there to the Lost Boys, and Wendy's down there, and it was a kid in a playhouse, and he was sharing that with me, his joy. And he was also, it was so beautiful because it wasn't like saying, here's what, it was coming from a place of, Richard did this with me too. It was generosity because they knew that they had an opportunity that a lot of people never get.
Right.
Or have the talent to have. But I mean, I was in there with him for like 40 minutes, just tooling around on that damn giant ship that Spielberg built.
Yeah.
So it was, that's Damn. And a private moment like that is, but that's because, like, you know, I guess he considered me a friend. And that's why when we had that dinner, and I had many interactions with him over the years, I wasn't closest with him like Bobcat or Rick Overton, or of course, you know, Billy. And I mean, so many people. I mean, I hate losing funny people. Again, I always say when they're not funny, well, you know what happens. But that dinner was, I mean, you mention his name and people get upset. People start to get emotional.
I love that story because what that makes me feel is there's a certain that something happens to a lot of people when they reach a certain level of success where it gets very lonely and it becomes almost like you can't share without it being misconstrued as a lot of things, being showy or being cocky, or and the fact that he felt with you, I want to show this thing that isn't this just fun and cool, and can you believe it?
Can you believe it?
He wanted to have that moment with you, and I love that. That really speaks to me. I love that.
Because there are people that you know and that I know that are, the top 10 stars in the world, and perhaps you had a relationship with them, and then it becomes high school. It becomes who's the most popular person at the moment.
Right.
And that's strange when that happens.
Yeah.
But I don't really care that much anymore about any of that.
I just still care about connecting with people, and doesn't matter how old somebody is or where they came from or what's next. I try to live vicariously. When Burr did Saturday Night Live, I waited 6 months and I called him. I didn't call him the week of, months, maybe 6 full months. And I said, let's talk. And we called each other. And I just went, how fucking fun was that? And it was like, and Burr, he's like, but they did, the one thing. And it's like, he wanted
that thing at the beginning. Yeah.
And I was like, no. You walk down the hall at 1 a.m. and there's pictures of Aykroyd and Chevy, and like, dude, we did that. We're scrubs from Boston. And it was just that thing of like, let's allow each other sometimes in a tough industry, in a hard world. Every once in a while, you gotta have people around you that just throw all that bullshit out the window and just say, isn't it great that we get to do something that we love, and that tomorrow we may be able to do something that we love, right?
Yeah.
That's where we gotta live. That's where we gotta be.
That's where I am. That's where I'm going to be. And life can be hard. Personal life can have its, there's a lot of challenges, but that doesn't stop me from knowing exactly why I want to do this. I'm getting inspiration, Dane. Have you been hanging around with have you been going up in clubs in the city?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where do you frequent? Where do you go most?
Mostly the Factory and the Improv.
Now, what about the special? So now we're seeing this thing this month. Is that accurate?
I'm going to film it out here in LA at the end of January. And I'm just so excited about it, man. Like, really more than anything that I've wanted to do over the last couple of years has been to lay this down and to I wanted to do it, in 2020, but because of COVID, and then it got pushed, and then it got pushed again. So to finally have this ready to go, I'm so enthused about it. I love the material.
Are you doing 2 shows like a lot of people?
Yeah.
And do we always use the first show and then we just feather in the second? Is that what we usually do?
So most of the I did 2 nights at the Venetian for my last special, Troublemaker, in 2016. And my Friday night show was so bad. It was so awful that I remember thinking, like, I was on stage in my head going, this sucks. I suck. I'm never using this. And then my Saturday night show was like lightning in a bottle. So in my head, I'm like, I'm just going to use all of Saturday. And then I go into the edit bay, and my editor, Matt Somerville, Matt goes, I think you should watch Friday. And I was like, oh man, I had like 3 people yell out, and then I went off book, and I was surly, and he goes, no, I think you should watch. And we ended up watching Friday, and lo and behold, we ended up using probably 50% of Friday night setups because it was so real, because I wasn't caring so much about the end result, that it gave it like a real interesting kind of sheen on it. Whereas like you could see that I was kind of like a punk. It was called Troublemaker. That was the name of the special. A lot of the material was supposed to be me kind of like, punching back. And so it worked out. But normally that Saturday night show is the one that you want to use most of it.
And it's different because on television or in film, if you're in a movie theater with your special, I guess we'll have 2 of those this year. I don't know, but it's really interesting. It's just totally different because what resonates with a live crowd often doesn't translate the same, because you're crushing. If you're crushing, that's like a lot of hooting and howling, and people at home want to hear it and hear the thoughtfulness of the material or the statement of the material.
Totally. Absolutely. And that's why what I'm also excited is just, I've always felt like, whether it was early in my career through social media or then working with Marty Kullner on Vicious Circle, like I always wanted to try to bring something into stand-up that I felt like would be something I could curate, that would be either an homage to something in stand-up that I loved, like seeing Carlin in the Round when I was a kid,
right,
or just an aesthetic or something that I feel like changes the look and feel of stand-up. And I feel like with my production company, what I'm about to do next is something that I just hope that other comics will not only enjoy and like look and go like, oh, you had a great set, that was funny, and the fans are laughing, but it'll be something that hopefully will be a great template for comedians coming up to look and go, oh, I think I could accomplish what I'm trying to set out to do if I follow in this path that Dane's laying out a new blueprint on. That would be my hope.
That's probably going to happen because, I mean, I'm more passionate about this new stuff. Came out of nowhere. I don't go right 90 minutes. It takes a couple years.
You've been on the road. I see you and Mike Young have been everywhere, man.
I'm doing everywhere. Sometimes I can't take Mike because he got engaged and he needs a life. So I got to let him have a life. But yeah, I'm doing. A lot of people are going, why are you doing clubs? Because I've been doing theaters too, obviously. But I'm going because I am going off book. I have to record. I don't know what it has to look like I'm making it up when I do it because I want it to be real. But I'm too weird to make people pay $100 to come see a guy just do whatever the fuck he wants. Maybe they'd like that, but I don't invite people, and I can't workshop in town. I need to do an hour, and I don't want to do. You've always been good at knowing how to just do that. You'll do the hour in town, and you'll get to hone it. I feel guilty about it. I don't want 20 comedians watching me. I don't want it to somehow, through osmosis, besides a Jeff Bezos rocket joke, which we all have 5 minutes on, I don't want it to suddenly be part of the zeitgeist of, that's everybody's joke. No, it's not. I wrote that 25 years ago and did it on Carson, and now it's, played everywhere. Like there's one that it's not nice to name drop. Robert De Niro told me that. I have heard that out of more mouths of more television comedians. Somebody changed it to Meryl Streep. That was a good move. But look, we all have common themes. You've been through this. We come up with jokes. Other people come up with them. I've been accused in Entertainment Weekly of stealing a bit from somebody. And it was a letter to the editor. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with people? And you've gone through that, and it goes away. I mean, we were on the same episode of Louis, in fact.
That's right.
And you were really good in that. It was really honest.
You too.
And Louis wanted to work that. Mine was like a button, just that I'll do anything for money. That's Louis. Louis liked to go where, like, hey, we had a feud. Let's settle it on TV. And that's awesomeness. And
right.
And mine was, Saget, you'll do anything for money. You'll take the part that I got fired from because I had too much digging. You must have loved doing that episode.
I loved it. In fact, I think it was one of my favorite things I've ever done on television because it just, well, not only because of the history behind it, but I just felt like the scene, I was like, man, this is like 7 minutes of two people sitting in the most uncomfortable yet loving and embracing moment at a distance. I knew when we were making it that it was something really, really special. And it's funny because like 3 years later, I was at the Improv one night here on Melrose, and Louis comes in and we're back to back. And so I go up and I do this, I don't know what I did, but I did this long bit that I've been working on. And I come off stage and he's sitting in the corner. I didn't think he, not very often a comic will stay in the showroom if they don't need to be, but he's sitting in the corner and he's laughing. And I sit next to him. Keep in mind, everything's happened. All the bullshit, all the, whatever, the internet walls. And I sit down next to Louis. He goes, that was a great bit. And I go, thanks. And he goes, I got a tag for you. I go, you're the last fucking person I'm ever going to take a tag from. And we just laughed
Are you finding yourself more socially conscious now of what you're saying because of this crazy woke world?
No, because I subscribed some time ago of if I'm observing and reporting on my truth, the words spoken to me, I can narrate, whether it's things I've thought or things that have been said to me, then as long as I'm not trying to observe and report on somebody else's journey, that's not for me to share. If anything, what this era is probably doing in a positive way for comedy is it's forcing, don't be ignorant for the sake of being ignorant. Talk about some real shit that you've lived through, and let's let more people of diversity be on stage to talk about their funny version of it from within it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, there's plenty of room for everybody to go up and talk about some obtuse, far out, funky shit, shock value. I want all that in a club. I want irreverence. I want people to be like, I want to see somebody walk a room some night. I just want to see it from their first person perspective. And so I've been doing that for a long time. I don't worry about what I still say uncouth shit sometimes. You can like it or not, but it's something that happened to me or my truth. So, how someone else processes it is not up to me, but I'm definitely not going out there and just shooting at any topic, hoping that I can rile some people up, because that's just going to get you in hot water.
Yeah, I'm not at all either. And some people are disappointed I'm not as blue as I used to be. It's like, really sorry.
What is that? Chris Rock had a great quote about that once where somebody said, but Chris, why aren't you doing that anymore? And he goes, you can go watch that right now. That's there for you. That's on a CD, or you can, it's like, if you like that, then go enjoy that. If you want to see a comedian in an evolution of how many years, Bob? 40?
Yeah.
And you're still out there crushing it, killing it, affiliated with great people. Everybody wants to be on your podcast. I want to see that Bob Saget.
Thanks, Dan.
Right? And that's what I hope, Bob, I'm at a place now. I did shows before the pandemic. How gratifying is this? I've got kids that were college kids that came and saw me in 93 with their son or daughter and family.
Yeah. I got people that watched the family shows that never stopped watching me as a stand-up, realized that I'm a good person, didn't take it as verbatim because I said it on stage or on a Comedy Central roast. That's not the news. Whereas some people don't understand. That's not the news, kids. I'm sorry that ex-porn actress said that it was. But I'm just at a place where I people say, who's my demo? It's like, well, you can't let a 4-year-old, they shouldn't be seeing my stand-up anyway, but 16 years old could. It's not as whatever, but I go 16 to death. That's my audience. I had a lady, Dane, what's the oldest person you've ever had in front of you in an audience?
I've had I have a picture backstage with a woman. She was like 88. Loved stand-up. Loved going to stand-up comedy shows. Loved it.
And smiled the whole time and laughed the whole time.
Ooh. You know how old people can't clap because they might break their fingers?
Yes.
Right? Because they're so fragile. They clap like this. Ooh.
Yeah. I had a woman's hand break off and fall onto the stage.
Oh, that's not good.
I
That's a
kicked
lawsuit.
it off into her beer bucket. I was in somewhere. I was in Omaha. They brought their grandmother, Dot, but they called her Dottie. And I said, "What's your name?" She went, "Dot," because she didn't like being called Dottie. She was well into her 90s, and I felt guilty. And she didn't look well. I hope she is. But she was belly laughing. But to make people laugh, man. You've got a gift that I'm very, very excited to watch what you're going to do.
Thanks, man.
I've always had extreme fondness for you.
You too, man.
In fact, I'll be right over.
I'll see you in 10 minutes, honey.
Oh, my God in heaven. So do I go to danecook.com?
I got to update that. That hasn't been updated. Lately, what I tell people is just, you can throw me a DM or anything's on Instagram. And then if people want to get into my, into the chat stuff, I've been doing Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse chats, and those have been a lot of fun. So if people want to come in and hang out, ask questions, I'm always opening up opening the phones and come hang out with me for a little bit.
It's cool. I love when it's conversational and we're opening up stuff. Are you going to, so with the special, after you do it, are you going to do the tour that we do sometimes? Are you going to go a little nutty?
Yeah, I can't wait to tour. So I'm putting the tour dates together now, but like we all are, we're trying to see what like the landscape's going to be with this variant and what does that mean for promoters and touring. But I got some dates put for April, May that
Florida, Texas,
the whole
that's where I go.
Before you close this out, I want to say sincerely, Bob, thank you, man. You've always been a really, really, regardless of how I have felt about myself or the world at large, you've always been one of those people that whenever I see you and we throw a hug or a handshake, I love sharing space with you. And I've wanted to do this, as you know, for a long time. So it means the world to me that you had me on your podcast, man.
It means the world that you are on my podcast. And I appreciate you, Dane.
You got it, Sag.
Okay. Love you. I'm going to talk about you now.
I love you, buddy. I
love you too. Dane Cook, who I've known a long time, and I'm really happy that he was finally on my podcast. We tagged back and forth for about a year and a half, and it meant a lot to me. I have a feeling he's got a really good special coming up, and I tell you all that you should watch it and go see him on tour because it's fun to watch people grow and getting a great energy from him and have a lot of affection for him and our past. We shared a bunch of shit. So that is Dane Cook, and he told you where you can. His special is getting shot in L.A. the end of this month, and hey, it's New Year's. It is New Year's. We have done it. We got to 2022. I hope. We don't even know if we record even a day ahead. You don't know the next day if something weird happens. If all of a sudden you start your car and a bat flies out of the gas pipe. That could happen. We don't know. It's batshit crazy, everybody. Can't do jokes like that, but what the fuck? I'm wishing you guys a really, really good new year.